This is Newsfeed, the AM edition. I'm Ayanda Ngati. Great to have you with us. Now, as we do at the beginning of every show, of course, we help you make sense of the big stories to expect, not only for the day ahead, but certainly for the rest of the week ahead. And who else to do that in the brilliance that he does, of course, outside of our news editor, Zain Semaar, who joins us today as well. Zain, always a pleasure being in your company. Thanks for pulling through again. Let's start with what's on Newzroom Africa's diary before we look at the newspapers.
Thank you, Ayanda. So today, our main focus on a lot of stories, the news cycle is really kicking in, and I think almost like the political year is getting off. So former President Jacob Zuma's lawyers are in the Pietermaritzburg High Court today, where they are expected to provide evidence of the former president's illness. He himself won't be in court because it's reported that he's in Cuba at the moment for his illness. So quite interesting developments there. I think one of the key legal issues is that actually he needs to be present in court when this pre-evidence is presented at what is called now a pre-trial conference. So that is one of the complications, him not physically being there, and then also the evidence or the evidence of him of his illness and what kind of illness he has will hopefully emerge later on this today.
Yeah, I'm interested to find out how much detail they're going to go into, insofar as this is concerned, because there's issues around privacy when it comes to how much you can reveal about somebody's private medical records. So no doubt, one of the big stories, right?
Another big story, a political story in court today, is the showdown between the public protector and President Cyril Ramaphosa. This one is about the Bosasa report, and the president basically appealing the public protector's report on his involvement in Bosasa. Also the accusation that the president has misled Parliament, which is quite a serious one. So that case is in Parliament today. Staying with the courts, the sentencing proceedings of former intelligence chief Richard Mdluli continues today. So a whole range of stuff that seems from years ago that is now finally kind of heading to a kind of climax in the courts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting how they all coincided today, or at least this week. But like you said, the news cycle is fully fleshed out now. And I guess nothing feels like a day in South Africa outside of having a public protector judgment or a President Cyril Ramaphosa judgment being read. So, it's a hectic one coming up. Anything else we're looking at?
Another story that we're also looking at is obviously State Capture Commission resumes today. And former SAA CEO Vusi Kona is expected to take the stand. Why his evidence becomes important, he was there for a very short while, but his testimony is expected to reflect on another key actor who's also in the courts at the moment, is a former SAA chair, Dudu Myeni. So he's expected to testify on her involvement in SAA at the time. And allegations are that he actually left because of a non-working relationship with Dudu Myeni.
Sure. Wow. Big stories ahead. No doubt, much of the same is kind of been reflected in the newspapers. And like I always mention, whenever the newspapers don't have the same leads, you know that we're spoiled for choice. So I'll start with the Citizen. They're reflecting on what's been the big story for quite some time now, and that, of course, is the coronavirus outbreak. It says viral scans useless is the angle they're going with today. Allegations, perhaps not allegations, claims from a quoted expert that the equipment we're essentially using to scan people coming into the country at our various points of entry is actually not effective. And this is because it was implemented as a cost-cutting measure. But now we're finding out from the expert that's been quoted here that it actually might not be able to do the job that it's meant to do. Raising very obvious concerns about whether or not we're able to detect the kind of things we need to when people come into our ports of entry today. And it's obviously coming at the back of the press briefing from SA's ambassador to China yesterday, Lin Song-chan, really giving us an idea that everything is under control in China. There isn't a need to come and fetch South Africans who are stuck in Wuhan, where the virus actually broke out, and giving assurances that, the kind of treatment that these South Africans are getting in China is sufficient. So while that narrative is happening, obviously there are now new concerns here coming out that we're not actually able to trace what we need to at our ports of entry.
It's one of the kind of unexpected consequences or unintended consequences coming out of the coronavirus, that a sharp focus and spotlight is now on the capacity of our hospitals to deal with some of these treatments.
Yeah.
And so I think it's almost like a good spin-off, so we have an opportunity to investigate some of these other issues coming out as a result of government having a plan and the opposition saying that this plan is actually fraught because key elements of making this plan work is actually not present.
That's
like equipment not working.
Absolutely. That's why we're going to have the opposition party, that's the DA, today. We'll be in conversation with them about what exactly they think is wrong with the plan we currently have in place and possibly what solutions they have to some of those issues. On page 5 of The Citizen, if I can, quite quickly, an interesting article reflecting about the spending patterns for property in the country.
Yes.
They're essentially quoting a report that suggests that single women have been dominating the property sector for the past 3 years, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. And they open it up in quite an intelligent way. Miss Universe, that's Zozibini Tunzi, of course, had always kind of given a refrain that girls must take up space. You know, you need to enter into different sectors and be completely who you are. And they're saying that whilst Miss Universe is giving that advice, it turns out South African women have been doing that for quite some time anyway. But, you know, again, it's quite unsuspected. I mean, according to the research, over 72,000 single women had bought residential property in South Africa. That is apparently more than couples and more than men.
Yes.
Which you know, again, you know, for me it was quite interesting to note. And I wonder what some of those reasons might be behind single women essentially dominating the private sectors, the property sector, that is. You've got the Star in front of you.
On the Star this morning, 2 stories that are doing their headlines. A picture of two people, one helping the cousin in the dark, quite a familiar sight now for South Africans, load shedding. And on page 2, they kind of follow up with that story about residents trashing the streets over power cuts. I'm afraid this is going to, in my prediction, going to be something that is going to be escalating in the year coming up. As we approach 2021 with local municipal elections, I think we're going to see an increase in the kind of